Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope your day's going wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we're playing with pattern paper again using a 12x12 collection from Photoplay Paper. It's called Serendipity, and that is exactly what it is. It's super fun and playful. I thought we'd make a few projects using the papers in the collection pack. Not the stickers today, just the papers. And I say that because I have the Serendipity Die paper here. If you guys are unfamiliar with die paper, this is a whole bunch of images that can be die cut out or fussy cut, whatever you prefer. But the dies that go with the coordinating collection will cut out the images like you see here. The dies will cut out the stamp set also. But if you're not that great of a colorer or don't have the time or patience to color, or if you are on a budget, then dies paper is for you, because these dies will cut out all of these elements. So that is super fun. We'll be using some images in here. And then today I'm also going to bring in the coordinating Serendipity stencil. This is a large stencil that's so great for so many different sizes. I thought this would be fun to go over and do a little texture pasting on some pattern paper. So we're going to be using the coordinating dies, the dies paper, the stencil, and the collection. I'm going to go ahead and find some papers and we will create some cards. The pattern papers that I chose, I'm going to tell you the names of them because these I trimmed in half. These are actually 12x12 sheets in your collection pack, or your favorite store will sell them individually. I'm going to tell you the names of them in case you're interested in getting them individually or stocking up a little bit more on your favorite patterns. But this is Choose Happy. We have Just Imagine, One of a Kind, Fine and Dandy, and Follow Your Heart. These are the ones that we're going to use. And I do want to mention that the Just Imagine has a gradient. So down the bottom is darker green, and it fades up a little bit to a lighter green. And also the Follow Your Heart does the same thing. It starts off with a red orangey color, and then it'll fade up to a lighter orange. So I'm using the lighter portion. But any gradient you use for our cards today would work because we're going to be stenciling over it. So these are our pattern papers. I'm going to bring in my dice paper, and I'm going to die cut out a few cherries. I am also going to do some lemons. I love lemons. And then also I'm going to die cut out a couple coffee cups. I'm looking at the orange and the blue for my projects today. Now the fun thing about our dice paper are the sentiments. They're colored in, you can see here, and when you die cut them out you won't see any white shadow behind it. Well, I'll show you. I'll trim some of these out and I'll die cut out my images, and then I'll show you about the sentiments. I have all my images die cut out, and I wanted to share with you what I meant about the sentiments. There is a little bit of overlapping, so you can't go wrong when you die cut out your sentiment, but it does die cut out the whole entire color. I just thought that was super neat. Okay, I've chose some pattern papers to do my stenciling on. We have the green, the yellow, and then the orangey. I'm going to put everything off to the side, and then we'll start with our orange. This is 3 1/4 inches wide by 5 1/2 inches tall. So it's going to go the full length of my card base, but it's going to leave me a little bit of a border on the left and the right. I'm going to take my stencil here. I love how fun and whimsical this kit is. Now I'm going to lay down my stencil on top of my pattern paper. I'm going to be using some texture paste. And then I'll just use my spatula and go over those hearts. The texture paste that I'm using is opaque white, and so these hearts will dry white on my pattern paper, and it'll give my paper some texture and dimension. It's kind of like spreading frosting. And I think that is fully covered. I'm going to lift my stencil. I want to go around the edges. That way we don't have no sharp edges. And this will dry pretty fast, but I don't know if you can see the texture that this gives. I'm going to go ahead and scoop this back. Now I'm going to repeat the process with my other two panels. I went ahead and finished my stenciling, and I did let them dry. It didn't take very long. It took about maybe an hour for the texture paste to dry, but I love the dimension that this gives to them. These two panels are 3 1/4 inches wide, I mentioned before, and this one I mismeasured when I trimmed my paper, so this is 3 1/2 inches. And rather than trimming it, I'm just going to leave it at 3 1/2 inches. So this is a little bit wider. I also have some different pattern papers. I have some strips that are 1/4 inch, and then I also have some 2-inch wide strips by 5 1/2 inches tall on these pattern papers. We're going to do a little bit of layering, and we're going to start with our first card. I'm going to take our polka dot pattern, and I'm going to bring in my card base. I'm going to scoot these up to give me a little bit of room. And I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to add some tape behind it, and we're going to directly adhere this to our card base. I'm going to adhere it about 1/4 inch from the right side here. After we have this adhered, I have this thin strip. I'm going to flip this around, and using my glue, I'm going to adhere it to this pattern paper. We're going to do a little bit of layering. And this one too, I'm going to leave about 1/4 inch on the left side. I'll take this panel, we're going to add some, and rather than using my tape runner, I think I'm going to use glue, because this panel is going to go over our texture, and I really want this to be adhered. So we're going to apply this glue liberally here. And I'm going to tack this down on my panel. We're going to tack it on our stenciled panel about 1/4 inch on this side. Now, since we are gluing this down on texture paste, it may take a little bit of time to grab, but I'm going to open this up and trim away the excess here. I'm going to use a heavy acrylic block to help secure that to that textured background. And in the meantime, I'm going to repeat the same thing with our other panels here. I think it grabbed pretty good to that texture paste, and now I have some 3/4 inch strips of white cardstock. What we're going to do is take our tape runner. I'm going to adhere this about 1 inch up from the bottom, and then we'll trim away the excess on this. Since there's a lot of busy patterns in the back, I think the white's just going to break it up a bit. I'm going to go ahead and take our die cut coffee mugs, and I'm going to add some foam adhesive behind them. And over the end seam of this white cardstock, I'm going to do a little crisscrossing with them. For this card, I'm using the sentiment that says, "Love you a latte." I am going to turn it over, and I'm going to add a thin foam strip behind it to give our sentiment a little bit of dimension also. And we will add our sentiment. We're going to do the same thing with that 3/4 inch strip. So I'll just add some adhesive. And then I will tack this down about 1.25 inches up. And then we'll trim away what's overhanging. For this card, we're going to use the lemons. And we'll continue on with our third card. This one is going to have the cherries. I just love the way this looks. I'm going to bring in some glaze and go over a few elements. I'm going to go over the wedges on the inside of each one of my lemons with my Glossy Accents. I'm going to go over the cherries and also the heart and the lid on my coffee mugs. I finished up with my glaze and it just made those lemons come to life. I'm going to bring in some scratch paper and some clear glitter, and while that glaze that I added is still wet, I'm going to bring in some glitter, and we're just going to add a little bit of shine to this, just a little bit. So tap away any excess. And so we have some sparkle on those lemons. And I'll do the same thing to the cherries here. And we'll do a little bit on our coffee mug too. Why not sparkle up our coffee mug too? I'll just funnel this back. And then that finishes my projects today. I hope this gives you some ideas. I'm doing a little bit of stenciling over pattern papers, and I hope you get a chance to check out the Serendipity 12x12 collection. I think it's pretty fun and fabulous, and I hope it makes you smile. Have a wonderful day. Thanks so much for joining me. We will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.